This is Nightly Business Report with Tyler Matheson and Sue Herrera.
Bouncing back, consumers rebounded a bit in April, but retail itself remains a mess. So what gives? Is the backbone of the American economy, better known as the American consumer, healthy or not? Taking the plunge. Home prices are not for the faint of heart right now. So what do you do if you're looking to buy your first home? Some of the best markets if you're looking to get in. And it's the new retirement, why senior women are making a strong push to be this generation's golden girls. All that and more on Nightly Business Report for this Friday, May the 12th. Good evening, everybody. Welcome. I'm Bill Griffith coming to you tonight from the New York Stock Exchange. Tyler and Sue have the night off tonight, so it's just you and me, okay? Now, we've been telling you this week about the wreck that is retail, and there was another one today. We'll get to that in just a moment. But first, there was a bit of a rebound by the consumer in April. Spending rose, albeit less than expected, but it rose nonetheless. Steve Leisman takes a look at how this could play out in the economy.
Consumers took a worrisome break earlier this year, but new data released today suggests they resumed their spending ways in April. Retail sales in April rising 0.4%, a touch lower than expected by economists, but a strong improvement from the prior 2 months. Consumers bought cars and electronics and healthcare and personal care items, and most of all, they helped shake off the concern about a weakening economy. Autos, appliances, and building and garden equipment also did well. The trouble for investors, consumers didn't necessarily buy at the stores run by many of the publicly traded retailers. Sales at general merchandise stores fell 0.5 point in April, and the earnings reports have been mixed. But the non-store retail category, which includes the internet, rose by 1.4%.
These department stores need to reinvent themselves. They're going to look different today than they did a few years ago, and there's not going to be as many of them.
But with plenty of job creation and rising wages, there's little reason to believe consumers won't spend, at least somewhere. And that underpins the belief that after a quarter where growth was below 1%, GDP seems likely now to jump back to around 3.5%. So it appears that the second quarter rebound is on track, at least from the early data, and that rebound is being led by the willingness of consumers to spend a bit more freely. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Steve Leisman.
Now to today's retail wreck. It was JC Penney, and as Steve mentioned, consumers spent, but not actually in the stores, and JC Penney was no exception. Like its other big-name retail brethren, Penney was dogged by same-store sales figures, and investors were in no mood. They sent shares to an all-time low before ending down 14%. Courtney Reagan has more on this story for us tonight.
JC Penney rounds out the week's department store doldrums. The retailer did post an earnings gain when a loss was expected, but that's due to a real estate sale and lower expenses. Its disappointing comparable sales and revenues sent shares to record lows. March and April did show sales improvement after a weak February with restrained spending as a result of bad weather and delayed tax refunds. JCPenney has come a long way from its failed transformation several years ago, but it's still lost more than $5 billion in sales in 5 years and is just now closing underperforming stores.
They're closing 130 to 140 stores. They have the categories like Sephora, like appliance, that is a driver, and they're going to keep looking at their store base to see. They're still in some very good malls, and they're profitable in some of those, in even some of the lower tier malls.
While there are some categories that are performing decently for the department store, women's apparel isn't selling as well as it needs to help lift JCPenney's sales. The retailer still thinks it can hit its full-year financial goals, but investors and retail experts like former Bloomingdale's CEO Michael Gould are skeptical.
I hate to say it, but I'm of the belief that the department store model is broken the way it is. It doesn't mean it can't be fixed, but it is broken of the moment.
Gould says it's broken because the merchandise isn't unique or all that special. Consumers have money to spend, but department stores aren't offering shoppers what they want. Who is? Amazon, outlet stores, and small, unique merchants. Next week, big box retailers, including Walmart, Target, and Home Depot, report results, which may paint a different picture of consumer spending. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Courtney Reagan.
So why are stores, especially department stores, having such a tough time right now? It's because they're not cheap to run. It's still more profitable, though, for many retailers than selling you the items online. Courtney's back to tell us why here.
This model was built for CNBC by retail consultancy AlixPartners to show the profit differential for a traditionally store-based apparel retailer selling a $100 outfit in-store, online, or a combination. A typical $100 clothing purchase in-store has associated operating costs, like rent and labor, of about $28 and around $40 cost for the goods, leaving a profit margin of 32%. That same $100 outfit with the same $40 cost, but bought online and shipped free to a shopper from a fulfillment center, has operating costs of $30. Distribution costs can be 4 times higher, overhead 3 times more when shipping and fulfilling individual orders compared to truckloads to stores, for a profit margin of 30%. What if a shopper wants to order online but pick up that $100 outfit in store? Now you're running 2 channels to fulfill that order. The operating costs jump to 37%, and the profit margin shrinks to 23%. Using stores as distribution centers is the least profitable model. Operating costs soar to 48%, even higher overhead and infrastructure costs to operate the site and the store and ship the goods twice. The profit is now just 12%, 20 percentage points below the margin of a pure in-store sale.
So what are all the things we've been hearing about retail this week telling us about the health of the consumer? Greg Portell joins us now to talk about it. He's lead partner for A.T. Kearney's consumer products and retail practice. Greg, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
You say that the consumer right now is the strongest part of the economy, and yet we've had so many store closures this year, bankruptcies by many retailers, and this week was an especially difficult week for department stores. Why the dichotomy? What's going on here?
Well, the problem isn't so much with the consumer. The consumer tends to get blamed for the inability of many retailers to meet that consumer need. I mean, the data would suggest that consumer spending is there. The failure comes on the part of most retailers to meet that demand profile.
So consumers are spending, it's just where they're spending, and it's not with department stores right now, right?
Absolutely.
So what do they have to do? What's wrong with the business model of a department store these days?
Well, A.T. Kearney's done some interesting research on the consumer at 250, which is really looking at the consumer behavior 10 years out. And what that will show you is a consumer that is much more into community, authenticity, and experiences, which is very difficult to see in many of the traditional department store models.
So we hear that many of these department stores need to be more online, that's where people are buying. I mean, the retail sales numbers for April showed that department store sales were down 0.2%. Online sales were up 1.4%. But you seem to be suggesting it's more than just having a presence online for these retailers now, yes?
Well, there's a couple of different types of consumer profiles. The convenience consumer that's looking for quick, easy purchases, for easy curation of product, that's going to be hard for department stores to effectively compete for online. Where department stores can really create an advantage is actually enhancing the shopping experience, giving a reason for the consumers to come and experience the store. That's what's missing in today's world.
Are all the department stores created equally? I mean, should we just paint them with the same brush, or are there some that may do better down the road? What do you think?
Well, the department stores that are going to do better are the ones that really have a reason for a shopper to go in there. When you look at some of the dollar stores, a Dollar General, a discounter such as TJX, there's a clear reason for consumers to go into those stores. When you start getting into the middle of the retail market, you have to ask yourself, why is a consumer going to come to this particular outlet as opposed to the many other outlets they have? And that's where those retailers start to get in trouble. They lack the identity to draw in the consumer.
So you like TJ Maxx, Dollar General, Barnes & Noble, Columbia Sport. I mean, they're specialty retailers in many cases here, right?
Well, they're specialty retailers because they have a very defined proposition for consumers. If you think about going into a big box department store, there's really little differentiation between one or the other. The department stores that break out will be those that really create unique, curated experiences for their consumers. So you're going to look to those higher-end stores, such as a Nordstrom's or a Saks or potentially even a Neiman's, once they fix some of the economic issues.
Very interesting. Greg Portell with A.T. Kearney, thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
Now to the overall market. All that pain in the retail sector was more than enough to drag all the indices lower for the week. Here are today's numbers. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell by just 22 points, closed at 20,896 today. The Nasdaq managed to climb by 5, and the S&P gave back 3.5. But for the week, all three of the averages were lower, albeit slightly. Meanwhile, in Italy, Treasury Secretary Steve Mnuchin got down to business with other finance ministers at the G7 meetings there. He talked about tax reform and trade deals with China. Our Ilan Mui is in Italy for us tonight.
Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin called it a productive day of meetings here in Italy at the G7 gathering of the world's most powerful economic officials. I asked him how he planned to explain President Trump's controversial America First trade policy. Here's what he said.
We're excited about U.S. trade policies, and I think you probably saw last night we made an announcement of a 100-day economic plan with the Chinese, so I think we're very happy with how we're proceeding.
That agreement increases market access for U.S. beef producers in China. It also allows more cooked chicken from China into the U.S. And U.S. ratings agencies and credit card companies are hoping to do more business in that country as well. Now, Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin was also pressed by his counterparts at the G7 on the timeline for tax reform in the United States. Italian Finance Minister Padoan said he's encouraged by what he's heard so far.
I'm not worried about U.S. tax policy. I understand that there is a very ambitious tax reform program in the United States, and we're watching closely on what is good for the United States and what would be learned by other countries about tax reform.
Mnuchin flashed us a thumbs up as he left the meeting today. He had one-on-one discussions with the finance ministers of Canada, Italy, Germany, and Japan. Tomorrow, he'll meet with UK Chancellor Philip Hammond, and then he'll return home back to the United States. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Ilan Mui in Italy.
A late-breaking story this Friday. FedEx, one of thousands of companies and organizations in more than 70 countries hit by a global cyber attack late today. FedEx said that it is implementing a quick fix as soon as possible. The attack hit Windows-based systems and used ransomware, which locks an infected computer or encrypts data and then demands payment to release that data. Britain's public health system was especially hard hit. Doctors there were locked out of accessing patients' files, and emergency patients needed to be diverted away from those hospitals. It is believed the vulnerability was discovered when some NSA hacking tools were leaked online in March. For its part, Microsoft said today that customers who have antivirus software and Windows updates are protected against this particular attack. Coming up, ranking the best markets for first-time home buyers. Some of the locations may surprise you. Now, we all know that when it comes to housing, for the most part, it's a seller's market right now. But what if you're a first-time home buyer? Where should you be looking right now? Zillow is out with a new report ranking the best markets for first-timers. Diana Olick takes a look tonight.
Today's young buyers are more cash-strapped than previous generations thanks to high levels of student debt and slow income growth. Home prices are rising fast, but new buyers today are more mobile thanks to technology in the workforce, so choosing an entry market is key. Zillow looked at 5 metrics to determine which local housing markets would serve first-time buyers best: median home values, potential price growth, inventory, the number of listings with price cuts, and the break-even time horizon for buying over renting. Leading the list, Orlando. Low entry price and lots of inventory, so less competition. Same with Atlanta. Las Vegas has the most potential for price appreciation given its strong economy and population growth. Dallas got in on a short time to beat the buy versus rent equation. Cleveland and Detroit have low entry prices. In fact, 7 of the top 10 are lower priced than the national median. But entry price is not everything. Down payment is usually the biggest challenge for first-time buyers. Not only does it determine how much house you can buy, it also determines the mortgage rate. A 5% down payment in the expensive San Francisco Bay Area, for example, is larger than 20% down in most of the best markets for first-time buyers. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Diana Olick in Washington.
Sprint and T-Mobile are reportedly in talks once again, and that's where we begin tonight's market focus. Bloomberg News says that Sprint and its largest shareholder, SoftBank, have entered into early talks with T-Mobile regarding a potential merger. The telecom giants considered a combination back in 2014, but that deal faced opposition from antitrust regulators at the time. So now they're back at it again. Sprint shares rose 1% to $7.95, while shares of T-Mobile fell fractionally to $65.55. AstraZeneca said that its lung cancer drug during a study trial was shown to significantly reduce the risk of the disease worsening in patients with inoperable tumors. As a result, the biotech company says it is talking to authorities now about pursuing regulatory approval, and shares jumped 9% on that news to $34. Health insurer Anthem has thrown in the towel, saying it has ended its proposed $48 billion takeover of rival Cigna after a Delaware judge rejected the company's motion for a preliminary injunction that would prevent Cigna from exiting the deal. Anthem now says it does not plan on paying Cigna a termination fee, saying that the company failed to fully comply with its contractual obligations. Anthem shares were off a fraction today to $181.44, while shares of Cigna were down 1% to $162.03. Deutsche Bank lowered its rating on General Electric to an outright sell from a hold, citing valuation concerns and weak earnings. The bank also warned that GE may be forced to cut its dividend as well. Shares of GE fell 2% to $28.27. They were one of the biggest drags on the Dow today. Remember when we told you about 2 million unauthorized customer accounts that Wells Fargo had created? Well, the bank may have opened a lot more than previously thought. In a court filing, lawyers representing customers told a judge that they believe the bank created 3.5 million fake accounts. A bank spokesperson said that the new estimate was a hypothetical scenario and does not reflect actual authorized accounts. Shares of Wells Fargo down 1% today to $53.02. And Boeing says it has now resumed test flights of its 737 MAX jetliners. We told you earlier this week that the company had suspended activity due to engine problems, but Boeing says it has received the green light now from air safety regulators to fly those planes again. Shares, though, did fall 69 cents to $183.25. Our market monitor has names of tech stocks that he says are not overbought right now. And one of his picks is catching all the blame for the wreck in tech in retail these days that we've been telling you about. This is his first time on the program. He is Rob Bartenstein, the CEO of Kestra Private Wealth Services. Rob, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us tonight.
Thank you, Bill. Good to be with you.
I'm very anxious to get to your third pick, but let's take these things in order. You like Amazon right now, even though it's at all-time highs, and people are thinking that it just can't keep the growth rate going that it's had recently. You disagree, I guess.
Yeah, I would strongly disagree that it can't keep the growth rate that it's had. I think if you look at the last 5 years as the roadmap, Amazon's been able to develop its cloud computing business very significantly. Obviously, the Prime membership and Prime businesses, which include their Prime Video, which is movies and television and other content, as well as music, their last mile delivery service and their distribution centers. Amazon is firing on all cylinders, and at this stage of the game, it's kind of hard to tell in some places where the internet ends and Amazon begins.
And a lot of people are buying it because of the cloud business as well, right?
Correct. Yeah, the Amazon Web Services is a big component and a big driver of that business, and they've been able to build that very successfully.
Your second pick is not a household name, but it's a very intriguing business here, Tower Semiconductor. Tell us about that.
Yeah, Tower Semiconductor is an interesting story. They work in the semiconductor business, obviously, buying up parts and divisions of companies that have been overlooked or underutilized. They then bring those together, create synergies, and do it very effectively. So they supply semiconductors to the likes of Texas Instruments, Samsung, and Intel. That business is going gangbusters. They're in the right place at the right time. Yeah, and they've reported great earnings on Monday. The stock is kind of broken out from its price range above 23, and now we think can easily get into the upper 20s.
Okay. Now your third pick, Snap. I had to check to make sure that I was looking at what you do like and not what you don't like. We all know what happened to Snap this week after they reported their first earnings report after going public. They lost 18%. Evan Spiegel, their co-founder and CEO, lost $1 billion in his holdings. You like the stock at these levels. Why?
I really do like the stock at these levels. And first of all, these levels now implies very close to the original IPO price. But I think what you're seeing and there's no way to sugarcoat a $2 billion loss in your first quarter. So that's clear. But I think what you're seeing is a company that is obviously in the very, very early stages. Snap literally has 50% of the eyeballs in America between the ages of 18 and 34 every day for 30 minutes. Those eyeballs are going to turn into revenue for the company over time, and you're going to watch Snap really develop into an augmented reality platform that's going to drive a lot of revenue over the next several years.
Well, we will see. I know you're playing the contrarian play there, but it's very interesting to hear you take that side of the trade. Rob, thanks for joining us tonight.
Good to be with you.
Rob Bartenstein with Kestra Private Wealth Services. Up next, why having a roommate is one of the hottest trends in today's new retirement. Having a roommate in your 20s, that's commonplace. But did you know that the fastest growing group out there now looking for a roomie are older women? Call it Golden Girls 2.0. Our Jane Wells takes a look at the new retirement from Tempe, Arizona.
69-year-old Mariam Ephraim and 55-year-old Megan Knavel are strangers who moved in together. Knavel needed a cheap room.
I work in the nonprofit sector. If you know anything about that, we don't make a ton of money.
Ephraim needed someone to care for her pets if she's hospitalized or call 911 if she falls, which has happened.
That's a very frightening thing when you can't get up and there's nobody there.
It's great, mostly. Think of them as the new Golden Girls. This home in Los Angeles was used as the exterior for the Golden Girls, but that 80s hit show is even more relevant today. Airbnb says seniors are their fastest growing host demographic, with women in the majority. And sites like Silvernest connect people 55 and older who are looking to share rooms. That's the site which brought these two together.
I liked it. I think it's a really good idea.
Silvernest charges homeowners $29.99 for about 3 months to find potential roommate matches. And roommates pay the site the same amount for a background check if requested. 70% of the homeowners on the site are women, and 55% of the potential roommates are.
Turns out she and I are both originally from the Midwest. We both like sci-fi movies.
But they've also learned that moving in together in their golden years is different than in their 20s.
You live by yourself, you get set in your ways. You don't have to deal with other personalities or other issues. Really?
Megan has learned to deal with Mariam's cats, and Mariam has learned to respect Megan's privacy. And which Golden Girl do they most resemble?
I'm a cross between the wild child in Rue McClanahan and B. Arthur.
Oh, I'm B. Arthur. Can't you see that?
And these days, there are a lot of B. Arthurs out there. For Nightly Business Report, Jane Wells, Tempe, Arizona.
And finally tonight, a pair of earrings to be sold next week in Switzerland could become the most expensive ever to hit the auction block. Robert Frank takes a look for us.
They are named Artemis and Apollo, and like their Greek namesakes, they make an unusual pair. Yet these two earrings are likely to become the most expensive ever sold at auction. Sotheby's next week is set to auction off a pair of earrings in Geneva that could together fetch nearly $70 million. The pink stone is called the Artemis Pink, a 16-carat fancy intense pink. It is estimated to sell for $18 million. Its brother, Apollo, is even more rare, a 14.5-carat internally flawless blue diamond that was mined in South Africa and could sell for up to $50 million. Now, while they were cut into pear-shaped stones to match, they will be sold separately at the auction. Diamond dealers say the buyer could easily turn either into a necklace or ring or keep them both as earrings.
I'd love it if they were sold to the same person. Very often when we've sold things separately, they do end up with the same buyer. But it also gives the possibility of somebody who wants the blue only or the pink only to buy them as well.
Now, colored diamond prices have surged in recent years as the world's super rich look for easily portable and appreciating stores of wealth, and pink and blue are the most desirable. The 59.6-carat pink diamond, called the Pink Star, sold last month by Sotheby's for $71.2 million, making it the most expensive diamond ever sold at auction. Christie's sold the 14.6-carat Oppenheimer blue diamond for $57.5 million last May. Prices for pink diamonds, well, they're up 360% since 2005. And blue stones are up 161% over the same period. Now, that doesn't mean your wedding ring is now worth more. Common colorless or white diamonds have been flat or declining in prices in recent years. For Nightly Business Report, I'm Robert Frank.
And that is our show for tonight. I'm Bill Griffith. Have a great weekend, everybody.